Hey, good afternoon. It's Wednesday, November 9th, and welcome to Everyday Talk 24/7. Really good to have you here today, and welcome to my channel. I'm going to be talking today about relationships and when one person believes that another person is controlling them. They literally believe that a person is making their life miserable. So we're going to talk about what happens, what is the theme, what is the reason behind you believing someone is controlling you. And do they really control you? Do other people really control you? That's our topic for today. You see, the answer to that is very simple. No one has power over you except what you grant them. And no one has power over you except God. So those two things. No one has power over you except what you give to them. And no one really has control over your life except God. So that means that the other people who you think are controlling you, who think are making your life miserable, who think are making your life full of stress, the reality is that God is telling you, no, He is in control, and you don't have to allow other people to control you. We can have the confidence that if our desire is to bring honor to Him and not to make things right with the other person, but the desire is to honor God and the commitment and the faith to honor God, then that puts the actions of other people into perspective. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that other people cannot be or attempt to be controlling. And they can even be nasty and manipulative and hurtful. I'm not challenging that for a moment. What I am saying is that that does not have to control you, even if they are attempting to do it. Because God is the one who's in control. So the first point we look at, other people only have power if you grant it to them. Proverbs talks about it this way. A soft answer turns away wrath. A gentle answer eases things and causes the wrath to dissipate. If we respond in kind, if we're angry, if we're hurt, if we strike back, too often that only fuels the fire of the person who is attempting to control us or saying hard things to us. Because in God's reality, that person's opinion is not what matters. God's opinion is what matters. See, that's what we have to hang on to. It is God's opinion, God's rule, because God is the one that rules the universe. The other person does not. They are not in control. Rather, God has placed them in front of you for you to have the opportunity to show His power before them. Not to beat them down, not to beat them back with one-liners, not to say some kind of a crushing defeat that will leave them in shambles, but to have a response that's going to bring honor to God. That gentle answer, it turns away wrath. It drives it away. Because that person is expecting you to be hurt or to strike back. When you don't do that, when you respond in a way which is gentle, which is something along the lines of, I'm not going to be hurt by that. I want to find a way to love you, even though it's hurtful for me. Because I want to honor God. I want us to honor God together. And the other person may get mad at you, they may blow up at you, but you have spoken the truth to them. You have kept them from being in control. And you've turned to God. You can smile, even in the face of hurt. Not a wicked smile, but you can smile knowing that God is there with you, God is there for you. And your obligation is to do what's going to bring honor to Him. So that's the first step. The second thing is to realize that God is the one who is in control. that these people that come to you, the difficulties that you have, God is not asleep. He's not on coffee break, as I say. It's not random. Each opportunity when you are confronted with that is an opportunity to recognize God's control, to ask Him for help. I know that sometimes people who are caught up in abusive situations feel like they have no hope. But if it's an abusive situation where there's physical danger involved or the mental torture that happens, you have recourse. You can get help from people, even if it's hard. You can call the authorities if it's necessary. But you don't have to stay trapped in that abusive relationship. I've talked about abuse in other situations, so I'm not going to go into it deeply here. But so much of the conflict, the battle, the head-to-head that happens each day is not so much abuse, even though it may feel like it. It's just the conflict of will, of one will trying to work against the will of another. And what we need to do is to yield to the will of God, realizing He's in control. I can return good for evil. That's an act of violence against evil. Not my little pitiful words and not my outbursts, but I can trust God. I'm going to give a few videos of this because this is important, because we have relational conflict all the time. But just these two things, remember them. Don't allow the person who is giving you a hard time, don't grant them control over your life. You don't have to respond to them. You don't have to listen to things that aren't true. If it's legitimate criticism, you can deal with that. But if it's hurtful and tearing you apart, realizing that person is not the one that has the final judgment or the most important judgment. That's God. And then secondly, it underscores that God is actually in control. And faith means if I'm going to act in faith before God, I'm not going to lose it. I'm not going to be angry. I'm not going to try to make things right on my own. But I'm going to appeal to God, not in a passive way like we talked about yesterday, but in a patient, powerful way, believing that God can do something about this. But I don't have to respond to letting someone else act as if they can control me, because you want God to control you. So those two things. Think about them. Give me some feedback. Give me some thoughts about this. I'm going to talk about this again tomorrow, because this is huge, because I know many of you are in personal conflict. And you don't have to be captured by it. Rather, you can be captured by God and be free from that. I believe that. I believe that's what the Bible teaches, and I want that for you. Again, thanks so much for being here today. Check us out everydaytalk247.com. If you haven't subscribed, turn on post notifications and videos will come right to you. Pray with me about this. This is really huge for us. Lord bless you, and Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow. You have a really good day. Bye-bye.